Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Ryan from Mama's Got a Budget, and thank you so much for joining me. So in today's video, I wanted to do something a little bit differently. You can tell by the title, it's going to be my financial story. So I was thinking the other day that a lot of people, and this just isn't with my channel, it's like with the internet as a whole, with YouTube as a whole. A lot of people, they join you or they find you in a certain point of your journey and then go forward from there. And it's like when they find you, they kind of think that that is how it's always been, and that's not the case at all. So I want to share with you my financial story so that if you do catch me like in the middle or, you know, 75% of the way to being debt free or whatever like that, that you don't think that that's where I started or that I always had the knowledge and the know-how and the resources and the tools to be able to do that, because that is not the case. I want to share with you kind of my life story, but from a financial standpoint. If you guys are interested in that, then go ahead and just stay tuned. So go ahead, grab a snack. Hopefully this video is not too long, but I am going to start way back in the beginning in 1987 when I was born. 32 years ago, a real one was born. In 1987, June 19th, I was born at 1:21 p.m. here in Chicago. I was born to a single mother and I was 10 pounds. It was just me, my mom, and my sister. And for the first 6 or 7 years of my life, I thought that that was normal. We would go everywhere together. We would do everything. My mom would bust her ass to make things work. I mean, not saying that I recognized that when I was that young, but it's kind of like I just thought that that's how it would always be. It wasn't until, like I said, until I was about 6 or 7 where I was like, oh, so other people's families are different. You know, they do have a father that lives in the home. Like, why don't I see my dad that much? And you know, why don't we have the things that other people have, you know? I would think about that from time to time, but my mom made it. She made it so that we didn't care about what everyone else had, you know? Because we always had, number one, each other, but we always had what we needed. So we never wanted for anything. We were never jealous or envious that, you know, someone had 2 parents that lived in the home, someone had the latest and greatest, someone went on vacation all the time. It's just like we never wanted for anything because we always knew that if we had my mom, we were okay, and mama was going to make sure that we were okay. Fast forward to about 1996, right? This sounds so weird saying that, but about 1996, I had this best friend in school, and we were like, we need to find a way to make our own money. We would kick it. I would go over her house. Her mom would pick me up because my mom was always working late. You know, most days I would go to like the after school care, but a lot of days I would just, you know, go over her house. I would ride with her. Her mom would feed me dinner, and it was just kind of like a whole new world when I would go over there. Like, wow, you got dinner? You got name brand Pop-Tarts? We got this great value brand maybe 3 times a year. And it was just like, wow, like this is different, right? So as we got older, we would think about ways like, okay, we want to go out, we want to do things that maybe cost a little bit more money. And we were tired of asking our parents for money because they would always be, well, my mom would always be like, we ain't got it like that. She was like that, you got some McDonald's money type of mama, and I'm like, nope. So I wouldn't even ask. I'm like, we gotta find a way to make some money, right? Let's do our own thing. So of course, me being the young entrepreneur that I am, we came up with this idea to make friendship bracelets. Like, we were making them ourselves at first, but then we kind of were like getting these inquiries like, oh, where'd you get that bracelet? And we'd be like, oh yeah, we can make them for you. So in 1996 is truly when I started my own business with my friend. I still have the kit right here. I dug this out before this video. I still have the friendship bracelet kit that this is the exact one that I would use. So I got the beads, I got all the colors, girl, I got everything. I don't have any finished bracelets in here, and I'm kind of sad about it, but I mean, we would bring these to school every day. They would pick their colors, girl, and about 2 or 3 days later, they would have their bracelets. So we would only sell them for like $3 or $4. It wasn't anything serious, but we would split the orders, we would split the money, everything like that. And we actually had like a legit side hustle where we would sell friendship bracelets on the playground. We would just have like money for the ice cream truck, things like that. So I'm like, wow, this is really like a thing. I see my mom working so hard, but then I could also do something where I don't have to ask her for money. All right, bet. From 96 until I moved out, and we moved to, that was in Oak Park. So if any of you guys are familiar like with the Chicagoland area, that was in Oak Park. But then we moved to a different suburb in 98, and it was like the saddest thing ever. And I was crying and boo-hooing, and I had to leave my friends and my little friendship bracelet business and everything and start anew here. So that was in 1998. So back in 96 is when I really started like my entrepreneur mindset. It's crazy to think about because it seems like so long ago. So fast forward to 2003. I started high school in 2001. So if we move up to 2003, the first day that I turned 16, I started working. The morning of my 16th birthday in the summer, my birthday's in the summer, June, well, not technically in the summer, but I say summer because summer doesn't start until like the 21st. My birthday's the 19th of June. But the first day that I turned 16, I was on a bus stop going to work, and I worked at Kittyland. And girl, I was so anxious, so excited to start working until I realized that I'm working in the summer outside with badass kids. It was so horrible. The uniforms were hot. You had to stand up all day. I was like at these random stations. I never operated any of the rides. I was in like the food service part. So we would have to be in like these hot like kiosk type things serving like hot pretzels. So then the oven would be on all day. Crazy stuff, right? I only worked there for like 2 months. I don't even think I finished the summer out. I was like, peace out, I gotta go, this is too much. Next job was at our local library. I worked there for over a year, which was way better because it was indoors and it was air conditioned in the summer. But downside is it was really, really boring, really, really quiet. The internet was like becoming more and more popular, but then you had like these weird people who would just like come in and log in and get in these like sketchy chat rooms. It was crazy. I remember my hourly wage was $5.50 an hour. I don't remember how much I was getting at Kittyland. I don't remember at all. But I remember at the library I was making $5.50 an hour, and I was more than okay with that because I didn't have any bills at the time. Still in high school, and it was kind of just like a part-time thing, and then in the summer I would work more, you know, and I would work until like from like 5 to 9 during the school year, and then in the summers like 12 to 9 3 times a week, something like that. So didn't have any bills. Everything that I had was going toward food and savings. That's all I did. And then of course to do things like on the weekends like bowling or going out to the movies or something like that, like little high school things that you would do. Well, it was a different time back then because it was only 2003. I feel like now in high school these kids are like grown as hell doing like music video shoots and all that. We weren't doing all that. We were taking our happy asses to the bowling alley or just being posted up in a parking lot somewhere having the time of our life, right? In high school also is when cell phones started becoming more and more like, oh, they're not just for grown-ups or people who carry briefcases or whatever. I still was in that mentality that, you know, I didn't have to have everything that was latest and greatest. As long as I had, you know, my mom and my sister and shoes on my feet, a roof over my head, food to eat, I was fine. I was more than okay with the bare necessities, right? And I was still in that mindset where, yeah, my family dynamic is different, but it's not horrible. So I didn't need to have a cell phone. I remember though that was around the time when those teeny tiny Nokia phones started to come out. Before it was like the flip phone that would like flip down from the bottom and that you would talk in, things like that. But I didn't need to have everything. I've never needed to have something just because someone else had it. In 2004 and 2005, I held down 2 jobs in high school because now we're getting into the mentality of like, what are you going to do after high school. And I was like, I always knew that I wanted to go to college, right? I wasn't sure what I wanted to do exactly, but I knew I wanted to go to college. And I was like, I'm going to be the first one in my family. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I had to drive. So I had 2 jobs junior and senior year. I worked at White Hen Pantry and I worked at Walgreens. So I remember during the summers, I worked at White Hen and Walgreens, but during the school year, I worked just at Walgreens. I would get out of school at 2:20 and I would be at Walgreens from 3 to 11. 5 days a week, so it was full time. So I would be there. I held down the full-time job and then like a part-time job at White Hen, like cutting up the meat and stuff and like cashier and just like little deli type stuff. I still had no bills, no cell phone, no car, no nothing. I actually didn't get my license until 2 days before prom because I just wanted to get it before I actually left high school, but I just wasn't that type of person. I didn't need my license because I knew I wasn't going to get a car because I knew that my mom couldn't afford it. So I was just never in a rush. So I held down those 2 jobs, just saving. And I remember it was time to graduate and go off to college. I actually got accepted early to this college program where we went down to Carbondale for about 6 weeks early in the summer and got 6 free credit hours. I mean, everything was completely covered, completely paid for, and we got the first taste of college life. I'm like, all right, yeah, this can work for me, right? When the program was done, there was like 3 weeks in between. Then that's when the real college started, right? And that's when we had the whole move-in process and everything like that. And I was also working at Denny's at the time to waitress and save up even more money. When I applied to colleges, everything was in my name. When I accepted their offer, everything was in my name, from the grants and the scholarships and the student loans, everything like that. Everything was in my name just because my mom wasn't able. Again, she wasn't able to financially provide for me for college. But I was like, you know what, Mom? It's okay. I've been working for all this time. I've been saving up money. We'll be good. Okay? So we get down. We're done with the move-in process. Then it's time to buy textbooks, right? She's like, I want to buy you textbooks because, it's the least that I can do. I was like, oh, that's so nice. I remember that conversation. So we go to the bookstore. I got my class list in my hand, seeing the books. Why do these books cost so much? Why? Neither one of us was ready for the financial hit that college would bring. I remember I had a full schedule, so I had 15 credit hours. I walked out of there with 1 book. 1 book was all that we can afford, and that is when the reality of college really set in. The financial aspect of it, anyway. That's when it really set in that I was going to have to do something and do it quick because this was no longer a game, and I knew that my mother could not financially do it by herself. Throughout the first semester of freshman year, I had to beg and borrow to be able to use textbooks. I mean, they had like textbooks at the library, but when they do that, they only have 1. So if that's checked out at the time, you gotta wait. And I would have to link up with classmates. I went as far as to photocopy an entire textbook, maybe like 2 or 3 times. Photocopy an entire textbook at the library that I was working at. Photocopying textbooks, doing any and everything that I could to make it through. So when I went back the second semester, I was like, no, I don't have a job. Something has to change, right? The number one thing, even though my mom didn't know much about college, because she never went, she took some college courses, but I was the first one to actually go away to a 4-year university, right? She was like, do not sign up for any credit cards. They're going to try to get you. They try to scam college kids all the time. Do not sign up for credit cards. Now, prior to this, during the whole first 17 years of my life, I never had the credit card talk, the finance talk, the how to pay your bills talk. I didn't know any of this. All I knew was that I didn't have any money, and a credit card gave you money when you needed it. I went ahead and I signed up for a credit card. I remember it was a Citi card, and I got approved for like something crazy, like $5,000, right? I'm 18 in college, first time away from home, no job, but here I got $5,000. Bet. I went straight to the mall. I bought all these clothes. I remember I went to Aeropostale. I went to JCPenney. That was a thing back then. And this other store, I forgot, came home, bag, on the bus with all these bags. No car to put them in, but I had clothes, right? So then, I would say like 2 weeks into the semester, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta buy textbooks, right? By this time, college life has set in, the being away from home, the frats, the sororities, the random jello shots, like everything was just like, the freedom was starting to set in, and I'm like, oh shit, I need to buy textbooks, right? Put all the textbooks on the credit card. Probably about a year and a half later, credit card maxed out. Didn't know what to do. So I got a job. I was like, okay, I'll just get a job, it's fine. Because I didn't know anything about credit and credit scores and, you know, how to pay your bills and, you know, paying bills in full even was a thing, because when we were growing up, my mom would be like, you know, I don't have it all, but I can pay a little bit of it. You know what I mean? So she would pay like a piece of the water bill, a piece of the light bill, you know, things like that. So that is the mentality that I had. I'll just pay a little bit. Okay, minimum due $150. Okay, I'll pay $150, right? Not knowing, not understanding, oh, interest versus principal, and if you don't pay it in this time, we're going to add the interest, and the interest is compounded by what you already have on there. So even though you're not maxed out, when we add this interest, you'll be maxed out. You'll be over your credit limit. You'll be hit with an over credit limit fee on top of not paying it in 30 days. You know, so all these things were just like coming down on me, and that's when I realized real quick, like, okay, I need to get myself together. That's when I got a job. I got a job at the check cashing place in the student center. If you guys have ever been there, let me know if it's still there down at SIU Carbondale. I don't know. I worked there for years. I worked there for at least all 4 years that I was down there doing my undergrad. So I worked there. I worked at Kroger in the pharmacy. I worked at Dick's Sporting Goods. I worked in the leasing office of my apartment before, like when I left the dorms and lived in apartments. I was just working basically just to pay bills. Rent, Carbondale back then, super cheap. I lived in a big ass 1-bedroom for $495 a month, and that was expensive. That was expensive for a college town at that time. Carbondale is like, when school is out, it's like a desert town. Tumbleweed, 110-degree weather. It's like 5 trees down there. I swear, you gotta walk places. You lose 5 pounds just walking to the store. At one point, I was working 3 jobs. I worked at the student center, Kroger, and the leasing office all at the same time. The leasing office was just temporary. So then I stopped working there and was just doing Kroger and the student center. Then I stopped working at Kroger, and then I did the student center and Dick's. Then I stopped working at both Dick's and the student center. Not at the same time, kind of at different times. Until I was left with no job again, right? So I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? I have no job. I was done with my undergrad at this point, but I still had credit card bills. Maxed out 2 cards at this point, my City card, and I had gotten a Discover card. Maxed both of those out. So what do? I get another credit card. I was using my savings to pay my cable, electric, and rent, and my credit card to eat. I remember that last credit card that I got when I was down at Carbondale. Oh, I was only approved for $300. I went from being approved for $5,000 at the beginning of my college career down to $300. That's how bad my credit was getting. I accepted the card because I had no other option to eat or anything. I did not feel comfortable calling my mom. My mom never knew about this. You know, but it's just like I had to do what I had to do. I would just bum it around with friends, ask friends if they had some food, if I can come over for dinner type things. Are you ordering a pizza? Can I get a couple slices? The winter of 2010, we had 2 horrible ice storms down there. In 2011, where it's like the whole city literally shut down and looked like something out of a movie. Everything was covered in ice. You could not walk anywhere without falling. You could not drive your cars because they were frozen shut. That same summer, something happened where the power just went out in the entire, I think there was like a big storm. The power went out in the entire city of Carbondale. It was hot, it was sticky. We could not even, charge our phones. We had to walk to stores that may be or may not be running on a generator. It was It was a mess. My mom and my sister got scared for me, so my sister got me a job, and I was able to leave Carbondale and come up here and work with her. And that was in 2011. So I left Carbondale with debt from 3 credit cards on top of all of my student loans, which amounted to about $55,000, and no prospect of how to pay any of it back. I just put everything in the back of a U-Haul on a hope and a prayer. My lease wasn't even up yet, but since I had worked in the leasing office, I was pretty cool with the landlord and everything like that. He was like, yeah, you can leave. We won't charge you. You would just have to continue to pay your rent at least, at bare minimum. I said, okay, well, I'll figure out a way. I rented the U-Haul myself. I drove it myself, and that was that. I just drove a U-Haul across the state, and I just had to leave. I had no more money, no more means to support myself. That's it. By the time I got back home to Chicago, it was still 2011. Like, it took me 9 years to drive home. It was still 2011 at this point, and I remember one day the rent got debited from my account for the first time since I had been back. There wasn't enough to cover it. It bounced, kept bouncing, kept getting hit with all these fees until my account got shut down completely. So now I was in debt to the 3 credit cards, student loans, now to the rental to the apartments where I was living. And I couldn't get a bank account because now I was in the checks system. But I was working, so when I would cash my check, I would have to go to the currency exchange. I was getting paid now $12. I came in, I think, at $11.50 an hour at my job at the nursing home. They just weren't accepting me. I was in a nationwide system that said, do not let Ryan open up a bank account. She still owes us all this money. So that was a rough time. I do remember I would have to drive my mom's car. My job was pretty far away. I would have to drive my mom's car. She would drop me off at work all the way in the opposite direction of where she worked and still drive to work. I would have to wait for her to get off of work. I would get off at about 3:30. Some days she wouldn't get off till 5:30, almost 6, and then still have to drive all the way back. I would just sit down in the basement of my job and sometimes go to sleep, read a book, just go dick around. I just was stuck. I really had nothing to do. I was completely working just to pay off, the bills, and I was still not catching up, right? Later in 2011 comes, I find out that I'm pregnant. I did not find out that I was pregnant until I was 15 weeks. I don't know what was wrong. Nothing was wrong, but I still had regular periods. I had no symptoms. Only symptoms I had is that I was dead tired. So it went from me just waiting for my mom, and reading a book or, just walking around or whatever, to knocked out sleep. I could not keep my eyes open, and I didn't know what was wrong, but my periods were still regular and everything. No symptoms, no bulge, no tenderness of breast, nothing. But turns out I finally missed one period, took a pregnancy test, found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh shit. So then I go to the doctor, and I had met Elijah's father when I worked at White Hen back in 2004. Went to the doctor, I get this ultrasound, and she's like, oh, you're about 15 weeks along. I said, what? She said, yeah, you're 15 weeks and it's a boy. I said, I didn't know any of this. I did not know. I literally left that appointment so overwhelmed. But I was just so overwhelmed because I knew how hard I was working and that I was going to be set back in a sense, financially. So now we're in 2012. Fast forward to April. I go in for a doctor's appointment. She's like, yeah, you're still not in labor. You're 41 weeks, so it's okay. Just go home, have dinner, and we'll go ahead and induce you. I was like, what? Okay. She's like, yeah, just be at the hospital by 7 o'clock and we'll get you all situated and everything. So I had been nesting a little bit, trying to buy a pack of diapers here and there, what I could. My sister threw me a baby shower. That was a blessing. So I had the stroller, the car seat, the bassinet I got from, hand-me-downs at work. Did what I could, but I couldn't do much. So I got induced. I made it 16 hours in active labor with no epidural. I couldn't take it anymore, y'all. I could not take it. And I got an epidural, and he was born after 23 hours of labor, 21 minutes of pushing. He was finally out. And that's when reality set in for the third time. I came in to the hospital okay, we're gonna do this. I left the hospital a single parent. I took 6 weeks maternity leave. You get 12, I can only take 6 weeks. And at 6 weeks is exactly when I started going crazy being at home, and it's exactly when I ran out of money to be able to support him. So I went back to work, and he was with a babysitter, but I was basically only working to be able to pay for that childcare. All of my money went toward gas to get all the way there and to the babysitter. That's all that I could do. This was also the time where I fell behind on all of my bills because I received zero help from his father. Childcare, I wasn't expecting that to be so much. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I had to pay tolls to get to work. I had to pay gas to get to work, and I was making $12 an hour at this point, and it was really, really rough on me. So I stayed at that job for a little bit, and in 2013, when Elijah was almost 1, I got my first job in my field. So I got an entry-level job into accounting, but it was only really bookkeeping. It was bookkeeping at the hospital, right? So that was my first taste of actually doing something that I went to school for, and I really, really liked it. Even though I really liked what I was doing, I was still overwhelmed with the cost of having a child, and this is when I defaulted on my student loan payments. I was no longer able to make even the minimum payments, and I also had a personal loan out where my grandfather had co-signed for me. In 2013, he had actually just passed away, and it was even more so all on me to repay that, and I wanted to do him right. I wanted to do right by him by not having this debt just linger on forever, but I wasn't able to pay it. So I had the student loans, and then I had a private loan, then I had the credit card bills, and then I had the by this time I had a small car payment, and I also had a child to support full-time, with food and daycare and everything like this. When Elijah was born, he also needed special formula that was about $23 for a tub, and that was and that boy could eat. I wasn't able to breastfeed at this time. My milk supply wasn't coming in. I think it was just because I was under so much stress. I wasn't physically producing milk, so I wasn't even able to do that to save money. And my credit score dropped. It plummeted to about 560. Yeah, it was real bad. It was about 560, and I had just started becoming familiar with credit scores when I started my entry-level job. So it wasn't until 2012, 2013 where I actually, got to know what a credit score was and everything like that. I still hadn't received the talk from my mom. This was just what I was figuring out on my own. In 2014, it was like a blur. I had so many bills and collections. I couldn't see straight. I had car insurance, car payments. I was in a crazy lemon of a car. My gas light came on not even a week after I drove it off of the shady ass lot, and it turns out that I needed a catalytic converter. Those were $1,000. There was no way that I could afford that. So in 2015, I decided to put my big girl panties on, and I filed for child support. Up until this point, I still had gotten no help from his father, and I finally started receiving the payments. I would say in late 2015, early 2016, I was finally able to breathe just a little bit more. And a couple people have asked me in my comments, do I receive child support? And the answer is yes. I do not disclose exactly how much I receive, but it is worked into my budget. And, a portion goes here and goes there. And I just work it into my budget because they're all lifestyle expenses that, my son needs. So it's just all worked into my budget. So yes, I do receive child support payments. 2016 is when I slowly started paying back the debt that I owed, right? I was also able to enroll in the 401k program that we had at my job at the time. So 2016 is when I first started saving for retirement. I was putting I still am, putting a small amount of my check toward retirement. Back in 2016, I was doing about 5% per paycheck, and it was a really good decision. Like, if you guys do have a 401k program at your place of employment, I would say to enroll, because it's pre-tax dollars and you don't miss the money at all. It's just like, start off small and you won't even notice like a big difference, but once you see that balance like quarterly steadily creeping up, it really does, make it like, okay, you're not just working just to pay bills in the moment, you're working and doing something for your future. So in 2016 is when I first started saving for my retirement, and I've been going consistently ever since. 2016 is when I also started my first online side hustle, and I was like, yeah, things are going okay, but I also need more money. So I started my first online side hustle called Dream Plan Repeat, and it's where I sold my planner inserts and things like that. So that was bringing in extra revenue as well for me to be able to pay back debt. So 2017, things started to look up. I was able to consolidate my student loans and start actually making payments on them, right? So I got back into an okay standing. I don't even know what it's called, because my loans had been in forbearance. I had exhausted everything before I actually defaulted on them. So I tried the forbearance and to forbear the forbearance and everything, just carry over the forbearance and everything like that. So I had exhausted everything, but in 2017 I was able to consolidate everything down and actually be able to make the payments. Now, since I was receiving child support and still living at home, I was able to put a little more toward savings. So then in 2017, I was also able to start slowly paying back the debt that I owed with the savings that I had. So I was able to make good on that loan that my grandfather had co-signed on me with, and I was able to pay that in full. And that was like really, really something that I was so satisfied about, because I knew that he would be proud, that I worked my ass off to be able to pay that loan back, even though, he was marked as deceased on the letters or whatever. I still feel like I made good on why he chose to co-sign for me in the first place. So I was able to do that, and I was super proud of it. So in 2018 is when I finally got all of my accounts out of collections, right? I was so tired of, bill collectors calling, and I was getting so many red light camera tickets, and these bills from college still were haunting me. I still had to pay back my credit card bills, my Discover and my City card, and everything like that was still a thing. It was a lot. So in 2018 is when I finally got all my accounts out of collections. Right now, we're in June 2019, so it was very, very recently that I was able to catch up. So I don't want you guys to think that I started fresh and that I came from money and that, everything's always been good and everything was paid for by someone else up until this point, and I'm just coming into the game. And that's why I was able to hit the ground running, because I didn't. It was so much of a struggle just to get to this point. But I finally got everything out of collections. I said, you know what, here you go. I don't want to have another bill collector calling me. And that is also when I got savvy to the point of, credit scores and paying your bills on time, paying a little bit more than what's owed, when to actually pay them, because, credit bureaus report at this time. So when I started MGB, Mama's Got a Budget, in November of 2018, I had just recently gotten myself out of the collections portion. Now, I still have debt. Don't get me wrong, I'm not debt free yet, but I don't have anything in collections. I don't have any collections accounts or derogatory marks on my credit, and it took me about 8 years from when I got my first credit card. No, it took me 12 years. I got my first credit card in 2006. So it took me 12 years from when I got my first credit card to get myself out of collections. So that is where we're working from. And becoming a single mom and doing all this and going through all these trials and everything is what it took for me to actually get to this point. To bring you to present day in 2019, my credit score has improved. I'm at about 763 for the Equifax, and things have never been better. I now have a handle on my expenses. Elijah's older, so I don't have the expenses of, diapers and formulas, and he's still growing like a weed, so I still have those clothing expenses, but he also doesn't have that mentality that he needs things and that he needs what everyone else has. He is okay with just having his family and a stick to play with outside. Just give him free reign of the backyard, and that boy, he will make a game out of it by himself or with a group of people. It doesn't matter. So I'm very, very thankful that he has that mentality, but it took a long time to get here. So I don't have those expenses anymore, but I have a new set of expenses where it's catching up from all of my past mistakes and making sure that he doesn't incur these things. So he has actually a separate account where his college is pretty much funded and paid for. My aunt and uncle were such a blessing in his life to be able to set that up for him. So now I know the conversations that I need to have with him. Even if he doesn't choose to go to college, I now have the skills to be able to have those credit card talks with him and saving. And he goes with me to Chase when I go to, fill my cash envelopes, and I let him see my budget. He knows that we're grabbing from an envelope and how to pay for things at the register, or how to order his own food and be like, oh, well, Mom, this says it's this much, but I only have this much, so I can't spend this much. Things that weren't instilled in me, I now can pass down to him and make sure that the cycle doesn't repeat itself. So I'm super proud of that. So yeah, guys, that is it. That is my financial story all the way from 1987 to present day. I'm still living at home, but I do not feel anywhere near as trapped and overwhelmed as I did when I first moved back home. So if any of you guys have any questions, right on time, because now the lawn people are here. If you have any questions, or if you can relate to anything I said, just go ahead and leave a comment down below. If any of you guys want to do a video like this yourself, go ahead, feel free. Let's pass it around the budget, the debt-free community, and let's share our financial stories so everyone knows where we came from. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Peace out.